Hey, what's going on YouTube? It's Pyromancer here. Welcome back to my channel. Hope you're having a wonderful day, morning, evening, afternoon, whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. And it came. Let's talk about it before the storm. So this is actually a really good book. It's 281 pages, written by Christy Golden, who's officially an employee of Blizzard, helping to write the story over there. I mean, this is another really, really great book. This is basically going to be about the conflict between Anduin Wrynn and Sylvanas Windrunner prior to the actual start of this war that we see kind of coming into full scale in the battle for Azeroth. Now, I want you guys to know something. If you're coming into this book expecting the painting of Sylvanas to be a little bit brighter than what they've been doing lately, you're not going to have any surprise. Now, spoiler alert, there will be spoilers in this video. I'm going to kind of give a TLDR of what the story is and what kind of happens. Not every little specific, because there should be something left to you if you'd like to read it. But we will kind of talk about what went down. But it took me about 7 hours to read. I have about 98 different talking points listed throughout the book. The blue one generally is for Anduin. The purple one is for Sylvanas. The orange one is sketchy things that have to do with the light. As you can see, there's quite a lot of orange in there. Green is for anything abstract or involving the Legion. And the pink is for really, really big political moves. Because there are certain points in this book where the characters will kind of go over something and they'll provide a letter to someone very subtly, or they'll mention something, or, you know what I mean? There's a lot of very, very quiet transpiring kind of going on behind the scenes in this book. And because of that, I decided to mark some of those. So TLDR of what the book is, because I'm sure a lot of people are going to want to know. Does it talk about Teldrassil? Yes, it does a little bit. Does it talk about the goblins and the bombs? Yes, it does. Does it talk about Sylvanas and Illyria and Verisa? Very, very briefly it does. But really what it's focused around is Alonz's Foul, a lot of Anduin Wrynn, Calia Menethil, and a little bit of Sylvanas. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. As much as I love Christy Golden's writing, I don't really necessarily like how they're writing Sylvanas into this story, because they're kind of, unless they have a big reveal about Sylvanas, then they're kind of writing her into a corner. And what I mean by that is they're making her out to be really, really, really dark. Like, spoiler alert, there's a part during this where she kills some of her own Forsaken. Like, Sylvanas is kind of on this weird path, and I'm going to let you know that I think that the only way that this path can go is one of two ways. Sylvanas Windrunner will die, which I don't know that Blizzard can make that move. I don't know that they would be willing to make that move with how popular she is as a character, or Sylvanas Windrunner is on her way to some type of redemption. Either way, you're going to have people that don't like it, because you're going to have people that are mad that if she dies. You're going to have people that are upset if they pull a redemption story. There's always going to be people that are not terribly happy about it. So we'll see what happens. But basically the TLDR is this. So Anduin Wrynn and Sylvanas, as we've seen in the game, discover Azerite. Now, one thing that's really interesting to note in this book already is that Gallywix's cane topper was actually made from Azerite. And he essentially reveals to Sylvanas that back in the day on Kizan, that volcano might not have been entirely as much of Deathwing's fault as we think. Now, the goblins were drilling deep, really, really deep. Deeper than even the Kajamite, than the Kajakola, right? And what happened when they did this was they discovered a very, very small but existent vein of golden fluid, golden liquid, if you will. And he essentially took the metal, or the liquid, and upon interacting with the air, it would oxidize basically, and it would crystallize, kind of like blood, coagulation. And he put it on top of his cane, and it turned that dark, kind of ugly red color. And it's funny because in the book, they actually relate that to the color of human blood, but we'll talk about that a little more later. Anyway, Gallywix's cane turns back into the golden blue Azerite. He didn't replace it with a new cane topper. And I think that's what a lot of people thought after they saw the Wowhead data mining of this a while ago. That's the same cane topper Gallywix has had. So something has changed that has brought that specific type of aesthetic to his cane topper when, according to Gallywix, he didn't change anything. Anyway, moving on. Gallywix basically shows Sylvanas, and the way that Azerite interacts with each individual is different. Each person kind of has a bit of a different thing that goes on. Although a lot of the times it's very intelligence oriented, right? Like they're hyper focused, or they feel like they can craft anything, as one of the goblins feels like. They can fix, make, improve pretty much anything. They are basically imbued with creation. But see, Sylvanas was a little bit different. Sylvanas felt as though she was a goddess of creation and destruction. She had never really understood how closely the two were intertwined. If you guys think back to what I say about Sargeras and the Fell, it kind of helps to support that idea that maybe chaos and the disorder of it is a lot more intertwined than we realize. Same with Light and Void. Anyway, moving on. Both sides discover the Azerite. Okay, now both sides kind of hope that the other side doesn't figure out about the Azerite. There's a lot of dialogue and talking in this book, like Anduin meets with Myra, the Saurian. They meet with Magni. Magni basically reveals to Anduin and the Alliance, okay, it's Azerite is what this is, and we need to heal the world. We need to figure this out. We need to make sure that that's number one priority. Magni does, of course, reveal what it is to the Horde as well, he tells Sylvanas. So, essentially, Anduin and Sylvanas end up getting in contact. They orchestrate that there's going to be this healing of the world, right? But at the same time, Sylvanas wants Gallywix to continue operations in Silithus. And as long as the healing of the world does not interrupt what Gallywix is doing, Sylvanas is okay with it. Gallywix basically responds to that by saying, yeah, we're so far along now, we've done so much that nothing is going to get in the way, not even the healing. So it's not to say that what Gallywix is doing is not going to hinder the healing, but that the healing is not going to interrupt what Gallywix is doing. So it's kind of this weird backwards game that they're playing with politics, if you will. So anyway, Arthas' sister, Calia Menethil, ends up showing up later on in the book, introduced with Alonzas Fowl in them, and Anduin thought her dead, as a lot of people did. Turns out that she wasn't. So basically what happens is Anduin is wanting to try to unite some of the Forsaken in Lordaeron with maybe some of their lost family, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles in Stormwind. And basically, the reason that Anduin had this idea to unite all the Forsaken with some of the living people at Stormwind was because he took a visit to the Netherlight Temple. And this is the first time that Anduin ever experienced this, but it was essentially just the conclave of the priests, and you had, human priests, elven, night elven, even Forsaken. And Anduin began to understand that under the light, all can be one. And unfortunately, the timing lines up for the gentle Anduin, who progresses a lot throughout the story. That's really what a lot of this book is about, is him growing as a man and as a king. His housecarl, essentially, Will, is dying. And Will is very old. He's been taking care of Anduin since he was a boy. He took care of Varian, and it's hinted that he even took care of the king before Varian. So he's been around a long time. And Gen Greymane kind of hints at this when he says, Anduin, you would understand if you were my age or Will's. And Gen is really old. Gen is not naturally living he's not a normal age. Gen's an old fucking dude. So with that being said, I'm kind of curious how old Will actually was. But anyway, he dies. And this really galvanizes Anduin wanting to unite with the Forsaken, because it so turns out that Will's wife was Forsaken, and she happens to be the leader of the Desolate Council. And it would so turn out that the Desolate Council ended up not really being that big of a deal. It was composed of 21 members with it spread out through basically different ranks of members who would kind of all do different types of duties to collect information and feedback from citizens of the Undercity and that type of thing. They weren't really malicious in any regard. These are just regular undead people that are just kind of growing, tired of their rotting, malleable, kind of disgusting, fleshy existence. Some of them kind of want to die. But Sylvanas doesn't really want that, because she wants her undead forever, I guess. It's this really weird, thing with Sylvanas, almost where, I think if she's afraid that if she loses them, that she's literally going to be completely alone. It's really weird. And this is a really, really big thing, okay? Because after the fall of Lordaeron, those people just left and basically tried to forget about the Scourge. They tried to forget about the monstrous, mindless entities that their family had become. And so this is a big suggestion for Anduin to make. Gen Greymane's not happy about it at all. Understandably, Gen Greymane thinks that they are monsters. Turalyon is not happy about it either. He believes that they are blasphemy, and they go against what the light is. But Alonzus Fowl is the leader of this whole light-gathering, conclave in the Netherlight Temple. So, essentially what happens is Sylvanas receives word that this is going to happen. They get in contact, Anduin and Sylvanas do, like I said, and they orchestrate this meeting that is to be like right next to Stromgarde Keep. And basically how it works is the Desolate Council, which we all have heard about before, is allowed to pick a certain number of names of people from the Alliance side that they can wish to reach out to. And whoever responds, and then they will be able to meet with them in this field. Everyone's unarmed and all of, all those typical kind of peace meeting type of things. Turns out that the Desolate Council is not really conspiring against Sylvanas. They're literally just a governing body of individuals who would do nothing less than serve her unerring will. So the whole Desolate Council thing doesn't really seem like that big of a deal. Even Nathanos Blightcaller ends up telling Sylvanas, like, look, it doesn't seem like a big threat. Like, they're just governing the populace because you're gone. Anyway, they all go there to meet. Here's the mistake that's made is Kalia Menethil tags along on the Alliance side as a priest that's basically being concealed. Now, why would she be concealed, you might ask? It's Kalia Menethil. This is the sister of Arthas Menethil, the guy who's literally responsible for what ended up transpiring with the Forsaken. So Sylvanas does not know that Kalia Menethil is there. So you have people that come out and meet from either side, and Anduin Wrynn is way off in the distance, and Sylvanas is off in the distance. Each side has about 150 to 200 soldiers there just in case something happens. And Kalia Menethil, by will of the light, decides that it is up to her to intervene in what is transpiring in order for the Forsaken that want to get away from Sylvanas to defect. And that is where the issue comes in, because Kalia reveals herself to the leader of the Desolate Council during the meeting between Forsaken and Alliance citizens out by Stromgarde. She reveals that during that, because Saara, the Naru that she had been communing with in the Netherlight Temple previously, had told her there will be a moment at which you realize that you need to help others. You have to give. And sometimes those gifts are wrapped in pain and blood. Sometimes you're going to have to step in to save someone in order to do that. Kalia, for some reason, knows that this is the moment that the Naru had told her about. So she reveals herself, and Sylvanas sees her. This is where shit goes bad, because it's Sylvanas Windrunner, and it's Kalia Menethil. So Sylvanas, she blew it, and basically what was supposed to happen is if she blew the horn, the Forsaken were supposed to return back to the wall where the Horde was, and the Alliance were supposed to return back to the Alliance. No violence or anything. But that's not what happened. Sylvanas starts to shoot her own Forsaken. Sylvanas orders her Dark Rangers to start killing those who would defect from her. Not killing the people from the Alliance, not trying to kill Anduin Wrynn, but killing the Forsaken who were there to try to meet their family. Anduin tries his best to intervene on this, but it ends up resulting in Kalia Menethil being shot directly by Sylvanas, because Sylvanas believed that Kalia Menethil was a usurper, trying to basically get people to defect from the Forsaken to go to the Alliance. I don't know what they're doing with Sylvanas' character, but they're writing her in a way that, like, literally anyone who's not completely devoted to her isn't worthy and, like, is going to die. And I don't get that. I don't get what changed with Sylvanas, because while she's always been like a pretty dark character, she's always been willing to do really terrible things. This was a really big kind of what the fuck for me, because I like Sylvanas as a character, and I think she has qualities that can really be focused on to make her a super cool character. I'm curious to see what Christie does with her anyway. To finish out the main plot line, essentially, Sylvanas has the chance to literally kill Anduin Wrynn right there. She could kill him if she wanted. But as Anduin points out, if she wanted to do that, she would have already done it. She wouldn't have been standing there having a conversation with him. In this, Sylvanas is conversationally incredibly cold. Essentially, what happens after that is that Anduin takes Kalia's body and returns it back to Stromgarde Keep with them. Alonz's Fowl and them, all those priests, return back to the Netherlight Temple. And then Anduin, through Velen, is suggested to go to the Netherlight Temple because Saara wants him there for what's going to happen. Now, Anduin doesn't know what's going to happen, but he goes there. And Alonz's Fowl, who is an undead, forsaken priest, and him commune with Saara. And Saara basically says, like, talking about the light and its servants and how, you have to sacrifice and do these things and blah, blah, blah. And then they rebirth Kalia Menethil with the power of a Naru through the light. Now, she's not alive. She's not living. She's essentially like a light-bound undead. And Anduin and Alonzis are both necessary in making this happen. In fact, Saara, the light, reaches into Anduin and Alonzis. And even for a moment, Anduin feels fear. And then it was gone. And then Kalia was just alive again. So we have the light basically reaching into Anduin and Alonz's Fowl, doing God knows what, like grabbing onto some of their soul essence, I don't know, in order to raise Kalia Menethil back in the name of the light. And I don't think this is good. This is the start of something really, really bad. I feel like the Naru attach themselves to certain beings and then they use them I don't know, it's like fuel. I don't know exactly how it works, but it's really sketchy. It's also really important to know that Sylvanas, during the course of this book, finds out that Bane Bloodhoof is secretly talking to Anduin Wrynn via letters. And Bane basically has to come to Anduin and say, like, look, she knows. We have to cut off communication. We can't do this. And so Anduin starts to question what Bane had told him about what transpired with Sylvanas at the Broken Shore. Because Gen Greymane was pretty sure that Sylvanas betrayed them, right? She left us. I knew it. She couldn't be trusted. But Bane tells her, like, no, like, that's not what happened. And so when Bane cuts ties with Anduin, he starts to wonder, well, was Bane telling me the truth? So Anduin, when he goes to meet with Sylvanas before the meeting of the Forsaken and the citizens of some of the citizens of Stormwind, he just blurts out to her, did you betray my father? And it describes that he's like, his heart's like racing when he asks her this. And Sylvanas is kind of taken back by how bluntly he was willing to ask her that question. And Sylvanas doesn't lie to him. She basically says, she doesn't say, no, I didn't betray him, but she says, your father was meant to go that day, regardless of what choice I made. The Legion was going to make sure of that. Like, he was destined to fall. It wasn't the decision that I made or anything, like it was going to happen. So Anduin basically takes that as like, she's not lying. She's telling the truth. It wouldn't have mattered if she stayed or had left. He was going to die. So Anduin kind of, comes to trust in the words of Sylvanas. So it's interesting. They're drawing this correlation of trust between each other. And it's really kind of supported by Sylvanas doing things like keeping her word. Sylvanas never, ever promised not to hurt the Forsaken. She said that she would bring no harm to Stormwind citizens or to Anduin Wrynn or any of the people of the Alliance. And that is true. Besides Kalia Menethil. But Sylvanas presses Anduin to say, is Kalia Menethil one of yours? And Anduin basically has to come to terms with the fact that, no, she kind of wasn't. She is heir to the throne of Lordaeron, which is a really, really big deal. But regardless, and she was acting of her own accord. Anduin didn't know what Kalia Menethil was going to do. And therefore, Sylvanas kind of uses that as kind of a way to say, like, well, she's a usurper. Fuck her. Like, if they're going to abandon me, the Desolate Council, they're going to try to go to the Alliance, and that's what's going to happen to them. But like I said, I don't know how I feel about that part of her story. But there's more stuff you guys need to know about. Because there's a point at which where Anduin basically forces Gen Greymane and Turalyon to come face-to-face with Alonz's Fowl, someone that they've known in life, and they both believe it's an abomination that he exists in death. and undeath. And basically Alonzus tells to them, if I'm wrong, then the light, shineth not upon me this day, basically to Turalyon. And Turalyon, I'm assuming through the light, is able to see what Alonzus is. Unfortunately, before this transpires, Gen Greymane has a few choice words for Alonzus, and he is pissed. And Alonzus basically says, you are afraid. And the book highlights that of all things, Gen Greymane was not a coward. But Alonzus basically says, you're afraid of me because you don't understand what I am. You're afraid because you don't get it. And that's why you're always so angry about the Forsaken, because you can never come to terms with the possibility that maybe we're not all monsters. Gen Greymane, by the end of the book, does kind of come to terms with that and says to Anduin, I never thought that I could see the Forsaken in this way. I never thought that they could be anything other than mindless, murderous abominations. So I thought that was cool. I thought that was really important for Gen Greymane's development. I think it was, a cloud that's been hanging over Gen Greymane for a long time. And I think it's kind of built his character, but hindered him as a character at the same time. But I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Now, as far as what happened with Teldrassil exactly, it doesn't really mention that much of it. There's an excerpt about the goblins that kind of makes it sound like what the plan was is that this goblin, Grizek and Safi, were going to move to Teldrassil, and they were going to basically live there. Unfortunately, Gallywix found out about this plot, sent people to find them, and ended up lighting them up with a bomb. Now, I do think that it is really possible that it's an Azerite bomb, but based on the description, it sounds like the escape tunnel was supposed to come up somewhere in Tanaris, and that it actually is a little bit deceiving. It sounded to me like, when I first read it, that they ended up somehow going to Teldrassil, because that's where they were going to send their little robot parrot at anyway. Because they're talking about the sunlight up there and how there's going to be sunlight in Teldrassil, but they're going to live with the elves and that type of thing. So it's kind of hinting at Teldrassil. It is also important that Anduin Wrynn ended up making a trip to Teldrassil in this book. Now, when I first started reading about that, I thought maybe, that was going to be how it started. But all he really goes there to do is interact with Malfurion and Tyrande and them in order to kind of try to put together a group of druids and the like in order to try to help heal the world. And so that's kind of the plot there. But anyway, overall, it was a pretty good book. I'm going to go into certain things a lot more in depth in the future, including the interesting points with the light, with Saada, the Naru. We're going to go in and talk about Sylvanas, and then we have just random points in here that I want to talk about too. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, just a kind of short TLDR of what the book is supposed to be. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, feel free to throw them down in the comment section below. Like I said, I didn't go into that much detail because I don't want to spoil everything in the book for you, but overall, a pretty solid read. Like I said, 281 pages, like 32 chapters or something. Pretty good book. But anyways, you guys, I appreciate you watching this. Like I said, more specific breakdowns on certain things coming in the future. Stay awesome. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more. If you guys don't know, I do have a Twitter, Twitch, a Patreon. All those great things. And I'm going to be streaming on Twitch here today, so feel free to come and check that out. That's pretty much it, you guys. Until next time, stay awesome, and I will see you guys later. Peace.